Hey everybody, it's Monday night, it's 7:30 and I'm here live. So, thing I want to point out, do you see this gorgeous tree behind me? You are so lucky that you get to see my crabapple tree flowering at the peak season, and it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, the wind is not blowing it off, it is not raining. I'd take you outside to smell it, but we get a better view from the window out of the office. So, with that being said, we're just going to kind of stare at that tree. I could sniff that thing all day. I've already had my face in it a couple of times today. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. If you want, go ahead, come on by and just sit. And if you want to go sniff my tree, go for it. But what we're actually going to talk about today is food. So we started last week kind of having a conversation that food actually can heal you. It has the power. I want to kind of do a little bit of a pivot on that though, because we really need to make sure that we're actually eating food, quite honestly. And why is that such a big deal? And what's out there that isn't food that we're actually eating? So with that being said, I want to do just kind of a little dive into some of the things that are not considered food or that could be causing issues with our food. Well, have you guys realized it that your body either can digest food and use it for nutrition or it can't? I mean, it's really a black or white opportunity here. Well, let me not say that for sure, because we do digest things that are not food. It's just we're not absorbing what that is. That's the big deal out of this. So remember, I just kind of recently woke up in the last 5 years or so. I'm the mama that when I was busy with my kids running around and trying to work and do everything else, just like I'm sure a lot of you are or have been or even could be in the future, you're going 10,000 different directions. And so we primarily were a family that did the McDonald's drive-through, and we would get either number twos or maybe the quarter pounder with cheese meals, always loaded up with fries, of course. And then I personally was a Dr. Pepper girl. So with all that being said, I have been the person that has eaten the things that have given me sustenance, filled my belly, and tasted really good. So what is that? That's ultra-processed food. Now, ultra-processed food is not something that was given to us by God, okay? Some people might argue that. They might say that, yeah, guess what? God gave us that food so we could eat it. No, God actually gave us dominion over the animals. What he did is he said, hey, guess what? You have plants, you have animals, use them. And so that is where we get our nutrition from. We get amazing properties from that. And that is what we can use to sustain our lives in order to bring on the nutrition that our bodies need in order to function the way that they were intended to do. So let's jump into what ultra-processed foods are. So there could be a buzzword. If you're on Facebook, you understand, I'm sure you've seen ads, you've seen memes, you've seen you name it. It's talking about different types of things. More than likely, ultra-processed food is something you've heard of. And so just to kind of give you a high level of what that is, it's the stuff that has additives in it. It actually may have some component of food to it, but there's been some chemical alteration to it. It makes it so it's not good for you. To be very blunt, there's a lot of potential chemicals and toxins. To kind of back up, I just want to let you know that I was at this really cool conference Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I love it. It's crazy how amazing you can learn so much in 3 days. My head literally almost blew off my body. It was that much fun. So some of the really cool things that I learned, I want to share with you. And it's things I've known, but I like to just kind of toss out some stuff. And I see I have people. So hi, I'm so excited we have people. So check out my flowers. So with that being said, if you guys have any questions, I really want to encourage you, go ahead and type them in the section and comment section, and I'll answer them if I can figure out how to do it. So I just know I have eyeballs, so that means I'm excited to see people. So some things I kind of want to point out when we're talking about like chemical additives. So very interestingly, the food industry, we want a little bit more transparency in what's going on with the food that we're eating. And so we are looking at, there are some things that are going forward right now with our country and transitioning. This is not political. I want to emphasize right now, I am not going political on this, but I really need you to understand that we do have some pretty big, significant issues that are happening with our food supply, and we've got to do something about that. We can't keep going forward like this. If you don't know, we do have chemicals in our food. We do have pesticides in the food that you're eating. There are food dyes that are harmful chemicals that cause a lot of issues in your food. You have seed oils. Those are things that are very nasty. They like to cause a lot of inflammation in your body, and you can't digest them. They are in your food. You also have food that is not necessarily genetically what it was intended to be. So it's something that's been modified. It's been modified in order for it to grow better, for it to maybe have a higher yield in order to make a better production. So you can get actually essentially more money off of it when you try to go and sell it. So why is this a big deal and why is this important? Well, because we really want to make sure we're eating great food. So it's kind of interesting that there's differences in the States, the United States versus Europe. And so fun fact, there are over 10,000 different chemicals that are allowed within US food products, and there are only 400 allowed in Europe. That kind of tells you something. So Europeans have it kind of the better way. They're not letting things go in. And in fact, if you compared a bowl of, say, Fruit Loops from Canada and compared that to one from the United States of America, you are going to notice a drastic difference when you're looking at the ingredient list. And in fact, there's a lot more chemicals that are inside the US one as opposed to the Canada one. And that's still Fruit Loops. There are other foods that are banned in other countries. I'll just toss out a couple because I thought they were kind of funny. And they were things that I actually used to eat and drink quite a bit of. Mountain Dew is banned in other countries. Little Debbie Swiss cake rolls. I used to eat those things like they were going out of style. I could down half a box in one setting. Again, we've kind of talked about Fruit Loops. Honey Bunches of Oats. They're not honey bunches of anything healthy. Coffee Mate. That's something that is utilized in many people's coffees. And in fact, I see clients when they come in, they're like, I drink my Coffee Mate. Well, that's actually banned in other countries. Stovetop stuffing I thought was interesting. Used to eat that all the time. The drumstick, the frozen dairy thing, the drumstick thing, those are banned. Skittles, Wheat Thins, Gatorade, Pop-Tarts, Lucky Charms are just a few. And they're banned because of the fact that they have harmful things in them that actually cause issues for bodies. So some really cool things that have happened, though. We are working on that. So red dye number 3 is kind of in the news. Back in January, it was banned, and that's actually a good thing. In fact, some of the dyes are linked to very significant issues in our brains. And we have a lot of problems, specifically hyperactivity in children. So things are important that we really try to get them out of our body and not eat them. Other things, like I mentioned earlier, are seed oils. Now, seed oils are not what we would call natural. In fact, they're derived, a lot of them, from petroleum. There are some petroleum-based ones. There are also some that are come from rapeseed. So your good old-fashioned canola oil that is so heart healthy according to the marketing, unfortunately, actually comes from a rapeseed. And what that means is it's just this type of seed. And the process that that seed has to go through in order to become the oil that you see has gone through an extensive chemical-laden process, a lot of cooking, a lot of chemical stripping in order to make it clear oil. It's really bad for you guys. You shouldn't be eating it. Another thing that was interesting that I learned in my wonderful conference, the amount of pesticides that are found in school lunches. So what does that mean? There's a group called Moms Across America, and what they do is they really just try to expose things. How do we provide safety for our children? And so they instituted a really cool thing where they did 43 school lunch samples, and they looked for 220 of the most horrible, yucky pesticides. So I'm not even going to try to name them for you, but one of them is atrazine. Atrazine is not a very good chemical that's out there, so I just want you aware of that one. Out of that, the data that I want you to understand is 74% of the school lunch samples contained at least one of these harmful pesticides. So that's what our kids are eating at school. 29 different pesticides were present in 74%. What is this saying, guys? That's not good. So we have to really start becoming mindful and really start to go, what can we do to really try to put good food in our body? And again, like I said, this was me. I was eating anything that sustained me and kept my belly full. And so as I've started to learn, understand food and understand what it can do, it's really interesting when I'm doing the testing because there are a lot of different things that I can detect with the muscle testing and the frequencies that I'm using. Pesticides is a huge one. And that's coming up. And more than likely, it's either something you've walked through, whether you've sprayed it on lawns, whether you've kind of come in contact with it in the air. But the most often bad source of it is the food that we're eating. So some other things I kind of wanted to talk about here. So again, thank you for just bearing with me. I just had so many notes from this weekend. I just absolutely loved it. Some of the symptoms that you might be experiencing actually could be related to some of the contaminants that you're getting in your food. You might be brushing off things like fatigue, brain fog, or kind of not being able to think straight. Maybe you're really sluggishly tired. You're just pooped out. They also could be signs of nutrition deficiencies. And what does that mean? Well, if we're not eating things that our body can actually digest, and we're eating other things that cause our body to become inflamed or our body doesn't recognize, what's going to happen is we're going to eventually develop over time what we call a nutritional deficiency. You need to be getting all of the broken down parts, whether it's the amino acids from proteins, whether you're getting the great, amazing minerals and vitamins that are coming from your fruits and veggies. If you're not eating them, or you're eating things that are contaminated or that your body can't recognize, you're not going to absorb it. And so we really got to be mindful of this. Otherwise, we're going to get the deficiencies, which are going to cause the organs to not work properly. Not a good idea, right? Okay. So we got to make some choices on what we want to do. That's what's super important about it. So what are some of the things that we can do? And the idea that, okay, you're telling me that most of our food's contaminated and it's bad for me? Yeah. So when I go grocery shopping, I very rarely go to the center of the store. I go to the outside of the store. And the reason is the perimeter has the fresher things or the frozen things, right? Okay, so we live in an area up here that's just finally starting to have like light and sunshine out, right? So we don't have very beautiful growing seasons on things. But if you're in the grocery store, go for the actual fruits and vegetables. But when we're doing that, the goal would be to try to choose the organic ones. Just hindsight, I'm not going to go into the weeds on this one, but in theory, most organic produce has the very strict guidelines that are saying that you cannot have certain chemicals laden in the growing process and all of that on things. So what's super important about that? If you're shooting for organic, you've got a better chance of not having the yucky chemicals on that fresh produce. Okay, so that's how we start with that one. Another thing that you're looking for is maybe regenerative farming. Things that are grown in a special way on a special type of farm. So organic means that the farming practices have to meet very strict guidelines in order to be able to manage and to do that. Okay, so with that, there are certain farming practices. One of them is called regenerative farming, and that's where they are using different types of practices that actually create a better, more dense, more robust, and more nutritionally productive type of food that they're creating for you. So that's what we want to work with. Conventional farming, unfortunately, the way that the mass farms are done is they're utilizing a lot of synthetic fertilizers, and they're going to be prioritizing fast growth on things, and the way that they do it is in order to get yield. In fact, it's kind of interesting. Some of the things that I learned are that there are certain specific types of seed that actually correlate, and they are kind of genetically bred in order to be utilized and have a better yield based on the types of chemicals that are sprayed on them. So that's a whole nother rabbit hole we're not going to go down today, but it's just kind of very interesting. So what am I saying? Go for organic the best you can. If you're not getting fresh produce, go for the organic frozen produce. They're going to be freezing it right after they're picking it, in theory, so you're going to get a better nutritional content. Okay, so we're going to try to stay away from the inside of the store. We're going to try to eat the whole food on the outside of the store. Another really cool thing is hit your farmers markets. Let's start getting to those right now. You've got HSA groups that are starting, and so those early crops, they're coming out. So you can get to some HSAs in your hometowns. All you got to do is just Google HSA and you're going to find them. Start hitting your farmers markets. Those are finally starting up. Head up to the St. Paul Farmers Market, for goodness sakes. That little bugger's been going on, I think, a little bit. So with that, you're also going to be looking at, when you're at those farmers markets, try to see if you can find heirloom vegetables. Talk to the vendors. See if you've got the organic things. You're looking for, as quick as you can get it off of the vine, to get it into your body. That's going to give you the best nutritional content. Sadly, some of the grocery stores that we have, especially in our area, because we don't live in some of these areas that actually have these growing seasons, right? It might have to sit on a truck or get carted in from somewhere else. So you've got this transit time that's there. There could be other chemicals that are put on some of these things that are allowing them to ripen quickly. Start doing some research on those veggies and those fruits that you're going to put into your body. And when we're eating them, we're going to try to remember, eat the color of the rainbow like we talked about last time. So what else? Let me think here. I just want to make sure. There's a couple things I want to make sure I did it. Excuse me here. What else do we want to chat? Okay. Thank you for your patience. You can tell I'm live. All right. We already kind of addressed the idea of eating seasonally and locally, but let's just dive into what seasonal means. So it's eating the foods that are growing in the area that you are. So it allows for specific kind of variation through the year. So like right now, the asparagus is getting ready to come up in our area. So eat it, go after it, and have a blast with it. It is right here. It's close to you. Some of these early crops that are going to be sprouting and starting to kind of having their produce happen, you're going to want to eat those now. Some of these early lettuces, early like different types of beans and different things, those are going to be the ones you're going to want to go for. So you go with what's coming out at the farmers markets. That's kind of really great for your body to do cycling. So just kind of consider that as well. Let's see here. We also want to make sure that we're cooking our food okay. And so the reason I want to bring that forward, ideally, if you can eat it fresh, awesome. If you can slightly steam it, okay, it's a little bit better. To cook the bologna sandwiches out of it, or to boil it, probably not the best idea. If you do need to, steaming it to a mushy consistency is one thing, or roasting it in the oven is totally a fine thing too, but we really don't want to do a lot of boiling because you're going to boil the nutrients out of it. Let's see. Again, as many different wide varieties of things you can get are going to be amazing, and just kind of considering the quality of what we're eating. So just, I guess, trying to stay away from the processed stuff. If it comes from the ground, or it comes from a tree, or it flies in the air, or it swims in the sea, as a wonderful, amazing speaker that I saw said, go ahead and eat it. If not, if it comes from a box, stay away. So if you guys have any questions, by all means, go ahead, reach out. I would love to connect with anybody that is just curious about what I do, wants to learn more. We're going to start getting this little show wrapped up here tonight. I'd like to be very mindful of your time. I do want to remind you, though, I've got a couple of things coming up now, if you haven't noticed. So next Wednesday, super fun. I don't know if this is, you can't see it. All right, you're going to have to go back. I'll put a link in for you in the bottom. I'm going to be at Crack Barrel Winery. In fact, I'll be having a little conversation. I'm really pumped and excited to talk all about nutrition. I cannot wait. So Bright Star Care is a home care agency, and they're actually going to be sponsoring this right along with Crack Barrel Winery, and they will be providing pizza and wine. I'll be talking. I'm not eating the pizza or the wine, but you guys go for it. I don't care. I don't judge. It's not a big deal. But I'm going to talk about nutrition. Kind of what I do and how we can all work and just start feeling better. Another thing that's coming up, so this is going to be next Wednesday. I'll put a link down. Another thing, the 29th of May, I'm going to be having a little conversation at Tangled Salon up in Hudson. We're going to talk about hair loss. So a lot of people have issues with hair thinning, maybe hair loss. And we're going to kind of dive into maybe what some of the causes are. And it's kind of interesting that you might not realize there might be quite a bit that has to do with nutrition. So we're going to start learning a little bit more about that. We'll dive into maybe some of the tips and tricks, certain foods that you can use to kind of help, and maybe things we might need to consider. So again, any questions, any topics that you're interested in, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week. And I'm not quite sure what our topic's going to be. I'm still kind of a little enamored by my tree. I got a little distracted. I love looking at my flowers. So we'll come up with something else. We'll probably stick with the food pattern though, and maybe we'll kind of dive into maybe some more specifics. How about we start with maybe protein? So we'll dive a little deeper into protein next week. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.